Let's talk about Williams, because they look like a team that are going places at the moment, as their recent form suggests a real sign of progress after a difficult few years in which they've suffered a lot of tough moments both on and off the track. Whether it be poor performance, financial difficulties or constant changes behind the scenes, Williams has not been the formidable force that it once was for a very, very long time. But this year, things are different. It finally looks like it is turning the corner and is on the road to recovery. As it stands, Williams is on course for its best season in Formula 1 since 2017, as we speak, they are currently enjoying their best run of form since 2016-17, with the car looking competitive in both qualifying and race trim. They are currently on a run of 3 consecutive Q3 appearances, and to top it off, they have scored points in 2 of the last 3 races, with Alex Albon finishing P7 in Canada and P8 at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone. And this is largely down to the upgrades that they introduced at the Canadian Grand Prix, when Williams revealed that they had gone down the direction of Red Bull in terms of their side pod concept. This is obviously a direction that a lot of the teams have chosen to take, because obviously Red Bull is the current benchmark. They have a clear advantage over the rest of the field. They are the dominant force in Formula 1 in 2023. But what was noticeable in both Canada and Silverstone, and even in Austria, which was the race that took place in between those 2 races that Williams scored points in, is that these upgrades seem to have boosted their car performance in the races. It feels as though they're now able to carry over the speed they show in qualifying into the races, and therefore look a lot more competitive over a race distance. And let's not forget that Williams did start the season strongly, particularly at the opening 3 rounds. Looking back, they scored points at the first race of the season in Bahrain, but then they were unable to follow up on their Bahrain heroics through a mixture of driver errors, reliability problems and operational issues, and these were seen as missed opportunities by the team to score points. And this is when they started to almost tail off in terms of their performance over the next batch of races. And this was almost as if Williams was spiralling back into their 2022 form. The 2 races that Williams saw as their biggest missed opportunities to score points again this season were Saudi Arabia and Australia. In Saudi Arabia, Alex Albon was running in contention for a points finish when the car broke down on him through a mechanical issue. And then in Australia, Albon was again in contention for points after qualifying well. He was running inside the top 6 when he crashed at turn 6. Since they introduced the new upgrade package in Canada, there has been a clear upswing in performance at Williams, that has seen them in the span of 3 races go from P10 to P7 in the Constructors' Championship, and the car is now capable of fighting the likes of Ferrari and Aston Martin. This is a big leap, and it represents clear progress of the team. But more than that, it finally feels as though Williams is going in the right direction and is going somewhere. It finally looks as though it is on the right track back to where it wants to be. And it always felt that this is something that it was lacking during its recent bad period. Over a 5-year period between 2018 and 2022, Williams really was a mess. Even when it made minimal progress, it always felt as though it was going to be a case of 1 step forward, 2 steps back. And this wasn't helped by the fact that it didn't really have a direction and it didn't have stability. There were constant changes behind the scenes, whether it was to team principals, the ownership of the team, or technical directors. 2018 was the first real indication as to Williams' financial difficulties during this period, when they finished last in the Constructors' Championship that year for the first time in their history, as they were unable to develop the car through the year as quickly as others due to the lack of money. But then the following year in 2019, they really did sink to rock bottom, where they again finished last in the Constructors' Championship, but this time they had a car that was 1.5 to 2 seconds off the pace of the entire field. It really was a complete and utter disaster. Although the 2020 car was a major improvement on its predecessor and was clearly more competitive, Williams didn't score a single point during that entire season. But more than that was a bigger story that was going on during that year, which was that the Williams family finally relinquished full control of the team and thus handed over the reins to Dorilton Capital, thus beginning a brand new era at Williams. And it seemed as though this new era was going to bring better times to Williams, as in 2021 they finished 8th in the Constructors' Championship with a car, particularly in the hands of George Russell, that got into Q3 multiple times and even got onto the podium at the Belgian Grand Prix. But yet again, Williams fell backwards as they were caught out by the new regulations that arrived in 2022, and once again they finished at bottom of the Constructors' Championship. So what has changed? What is there to convince us that there is something building at Williams and that they are back on the right track? Well, the first thing is James Vowles, their new team principal. James took on the role after joining from Mercedes, where he spent most of his time working in Formula 1 over his career. But despite the fact he's had no previous experiences working as a team principal, he has adjusted to the role extremely well. He looks a natural, and it really does feel as though he has a clear plan to turn Williams back into a front-running team in the long term. He seems to have brought a real calm and measured approach, which I think is exactly what Williams needed. But more than that, he's brought a championship pedigree because, of course, he was part of the Mercedes dynasty when they won 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships and 7 consecutive Drivers' Championships. And, of course, he's worked with some of the best drivers, like the likes of Lewis Hamilton and Michael Schumacher. I think bringing in somebody like James with all of his experience and know-how is a major coup by Williams. And I think that if things continue to go well, they're going to have quite a task to try and keep hold of him in the long term. But another key member of Williams' progress has got to be Alex Albon, who without a doubt has been one of the most impressive drivers of the season so far and has really developed into a solid team leader at Williams since he joined them last year. It's nice to see that Alex has seemingly found an environment where he's able to get the most out of himself both on and off the track, and he seems to be thriving at Williams, which is pretty much the complete opposite of what was happening at Red Bull in 2020. When he looked completely drained of confidence and he looked completely lost. Alex is rebuilding his career at Williams and he's been putting in some fantastic drives. And I think that even though Williams may find it difficult to try and keep hold of him in the future, I think that Alex does buy into the project and really wants to be a part of it. We're even now starting to see that this improved form at Williams is starting to have a positive impact on the other side of the garage, with Alex's teammate Logan Sargent putting in some solid performances at the last couple of races, where he finished P13 in Austria and finished a career best P11 at Silverstone. This for me only confirms that Williams is on the right path towards a revival. The car is working well and both drivers are full of confidence. So there is a real possibility that Williams will end up hanging on to that P7 in the Constructors' Championship by the end of the season. And who's to say that in a few years' time, as the cost cap continues to have an impact on the pecking order in Formula 1, that Williams won't have worked its way up the grid order even further. Something is cooking at Williams and it's really exciting, so we're all really intrigued to see where they end up. So what do you guys make of Williams in 2023? Do you think it's a clear sign of progress towards the future, or do you think it's a bit of a false dawn? Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, don't forget to leave a like on the video and to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching guys, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.